I totally get this, and I have some personal experience with this. So I want to say, yes, this is all very real, and all of the loss and the grief and the difficulty is all real. And if we back up and also pull away and try to just look at what are these names and what do they represent, and is it about our kids being as comfortable as they can be in their bodies and in the world? Happy Halloween, everyone, and happy second Sitting Down with Dr. Dan October episode of the month. This has been an exciting month. As you know, we're airing our Exactly Right favorite episodes, and our audio engineer, Phil, is joining me today in our virtual studio to answer more of your listener questions. You know, we love your questions. Thank you for submitting them through Meta, X, Instagram, and our email, podcast@drdanpeters.com. We so appreciate your questions and look forward to diving in each show. Hello, Phil.
Hello, Dr. Dan.
I thought we weren't dressing up. What happened?
As far as our listeners know, we could very well be dressed up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
So,
you are in black. And
you know what? I am in black. You just saw my black cat.
I just saw your black cat. There's a theme.
There is a theme. So I think we are right on track for this magical day of the year.
Yeah.
So thanks to our listeners for getting in some great questions and getting them in before heading out to trick or treat. I hope everyone has a safe Halloween out there, and parents, save some Reese's peanut butter cups for your kids, because those were the things that I would tend to covet.
Oh, those are for sure. Those are my favorite.
The best.
The best. the best. And when you cultivate good relationships with your kids, they get excited to give them to you instead of keep them from you.
Yes. And
added motivation. Added motivation for parenting, positive parenting relationships.
Yeah. And then
Reese's.
Then you don't have the guilt and shame of stealing candy from your children.
Right.
Okay. Let's get into this episode, because we have some great questions that we'll need all of our time to cover here today. So question number 1. Our son took a gap year, and he just informed us he wants to take a second gap year. We do not support this. He is doing volunteering and also working a paying job, but we think this is a big mistake, and now he won't talk to us. He's living away from home.
Okay. Yeah, lots of places to go with this. So I say this with compassion. He's not talking to you because you're not supporting him. And so, without knowing what the conversations have been like, we really want to step back and we want to listen, as opposed to just come in with our ideas, sometimes our judgment, often our fear and worry about what this means for their future, and try to really understand what is going on. So I'm hearing here, there was a gap year. He's not living at home. He's volunteering and working. So, pat yourself on the shoulder for a second here. You have a child who's living away from you, who is working and volunteering. So this is a person who is in society. We don't know, of course, what he's doing or how that is feeling for you, what he's doing when you're thinking about him and his future. But I can say that right away, that is a successful launch right there, right? So this person's in the world. Now, many people have been taking gap years, and many people have been taking multiple gap years during and since COVID for a variety of reasons. Reasons, of course, being when there were virtual classes. Other reasons were people they lost a year or two socially, confidence, development, identity through COVID, which does have lingering effects. There are people where they didn't get into the schools they wanted to because of how impacted schools were once COVID ended, and several schools are trying to catch up. There were other people who just decided they wanted to do something different and there wasn't a rush. Now, sometimes it could be that there is someone who is questioning the utility of school, if depending on what kind of person, what kind of learner they are, where their skill set is. And sometimes it's like, I actually like working. I don't want to go to take classes which I don't see as relevant. And I don't see this as being worth my money, your money. And right now I'm satisfied. And so I know with one of our kids, we had to have a similar conversation that was protracted over time. And it was, we worked hard to make it a conversation and to really understand where this child was coming from, and let me put it this way, this young adult was coming from, and really listen and go back and forth and say, hey, we're hearing you, we're really considering this. We'd like you to consider this, and let's talk about it again. And it was a process. And I know sometimes there's timelines that you have to really make these decisions. In the end of the day, you have a young adult that you want to have a relationship with.
Yeah.
For the long haul.
Yeah.
And so if you have a strong-willed, goal-directed young adult who is trying to live their life, you want to be a part of it. And you want to have a relationship where they're open to listening. For example, could this be something related to worry or anxiety? Is it something where you might be lacking confidence because you've been away for a year? Is this because you're in a relationship with this person and you don't want to go away from this person? Is this because your friends are all doing this and you're thinking that you wouldn't want to do something different, or vice versa? So this could be a great decision for this individual. And also, I am sure you have very valid reasons why you are concerned and don't agree. Finally, I'll say, we really, and I know my wife and I had to take steps back in several situations with our kids over the years to ask ourselves, how much of this is our worry and fear about our kids not doing what they are, quote, supposed to do, what everyone else is doing, and listening to the fear mongering about how different paths go this way and the main path always goes this way with the outcomes. We know it's not true. And what we had to work really hard is to really look at ourselves in this process and find that balance of guiding, but also really listening and empowering our young adult kids to follow where they felt they need to go.
Yeah. And that's no easy feat. Our feelings, emotions, anxiety over some of these things they're very real, and they are part of a set of our daily stresses, right? So it's not like our plates are not full, and adding this on, it can overwhelm you. And then in those moments of being overwhelmed, you may not be your best self for what the moment needs. You may be doing your best, but you may need to take that step back, right? And which I think is one of the things you're kind of getting at here, is that step back can be important, and to understand where does your role intersect with your child's role in their own life. But like you said, we have our own fears, and sometimes we project those onto our kids, our own anxieties. Even maybe we made some choices back when we were younger. Maybe we took a gap year, or maybe we decided we didn't want to go to college and we ended up regretting it. And we don't want our kids to grow up with the same regret. Who knows? But at the end of the day, it's very important not to put your fears onto your kids, and rather support them and guide them. And I mean, I really can't state it any better than you have here. But it's real, and so
yeah,
even even let me rephrase that. We all will stumble on the journey of parenting, but it's never, it's never too late or a bad moment to get back on the path and keep going and re-engage. Right now, maybe your child's not speaking to you, but the door will open. Do you have advice for opening the door, Dr. Dan?
Yeah. I was actually just, when you said that, I'm like, huh. So to me, the door opens when we are honest and say something like, hey, I've just been thinking a lot about our conversations and some of the things that we have expressed to you. And we want you to know that it comes with love and concern. And yet we also understand that we have not been sounding very supportive and only been expressing the critical aspects of our point of view.
Yeah.
And we want to hear what you think, and we want to see how this unfolds, and we ultimately really want to support you. And so it even could be you can have a sorry in there too. So I'm sorry if we've come off as really negative and critical.
Yeah.
Because without that, it just, things languish. And the other thing I was thinking, Phil, while you were talking, was this isn't about being right or wrong, but if your guidance, which was not taken, ultimately turns out to have been good guidance, we want our kids to be able to come back later and say, you know what, I think you guys had a lot of sense that I didn't see at the time, and so I tried this, and now I'm going to do this other thing. But I think you guys, it makes sense now what you were saying, as opposed to, I can't let them know that they were right, because they were telling me I was wrong. They were telling me this wasn't going to work out. They were telling me this wasn't good for me, and then it turned out it wasn't. So the last thing I'm going to do is actually tell them that they were right and I should have listened. So we want a relationship that is more open, where someone could say, yeah, man, I just wasn't in a place to hear that, or I really needed to go through this, but it turns out you kind of called it.
Yeah.
So it's like opening the door is like literally thinking about, how do you open the door and put down your ego and put down your own, our kids as extensions of ourselves, and what that says about who we are by what they do and the road that they're on. We got to put all that down. And so much of the greatest philosophers and thinkers and psychologists over time have just said the greatest thing that we can do is live our own lives fully and let our kids fully live theirs.
Yes. Bravo. I think that is a beautiful way to wrap up a really good question and a really challenging thing to deal with. So, we'll be thinking of you out there. And I think with Dr. Dan's advice in mind, there can be resolution where the outcome is a stronger relationship with your child.
Mm-hmm. All right, one last thing. One last wisdom drop. You keep helping me think about this. And I was talking to a friend about this. Is the parable, which I will not do complete justice.
Okay.
But the parable about, there's the guy in the fields, and his horse runs away. And the neighbor says, "Oh, your horse ran away. That's terrible." And he says, "Maybe yes, maybe no." And then the next day, that horse brings back a whole slew of horses. And the guy says, "Oh, how wonderful. You have all these horses now." And he says, maybe, the neighbor says that. Then he says, "Maybe yes, maybe no." And then the next day, his son is riding a horse. He falls off. He breaks his leg. The neighbor says, "How terrible." And the guy says, "Maybe yes, maybe no." And the next day, there is war that has broken out, and the soldiers come to take all the able-bodied men to war. and the son cannot come because he has a broken leg. And the neighbor says, "Oh, how wonderful, your son is spared because his leg is broken." And the man says, "Maybe yes, maybe no." And so when we think about all of these roads, the second gap year, maybe yes, maybe no. We have no idea where
I
these
love that
things go.
parable. Love that parable so very much. I can listen to it over and over. I can read it over and over, and I think it's a simple mantra to keep in mind. Maybe yes, maybe no.
Mm-hmm.
And now on that wisdom bomb drop, we'll move on to question number 2.
Let's go.
Number 2, our daughter is in her late 20s, and she has started the process to officially change her first name. This is bringing up a lot of emotions for us as parents and for her siblings. We feel helpless and inexperienced and need some advice.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I empathize, and this is pretty common these days.
Yeah.
Right? Lots of people are changing their names, changing their pronouns, changing their genders. There's a lot of change and fluidity happening in our human species right now, and for many, it can come as a shock. And what I want to validate is more the loss, the feeling of the loss when you know this person as this particular person, by name, by gender, and there's a change. It's hard for people not to take it personally, and what I will say is it's very similar to the last aspects of the last question. Is part of this process is trying to understand what this means for your child, because often the meaning can create more acceptance. A child saying, "I've always felt like this with this name, but this name makes me feel like this." Or when I think about myself with this name, I think of this, this, and this. And when I think about myself, this name, I feel like this, this, and this. And this is very important to me. What a lot of these individuals of all ages worry and fear about is that they will not be accepted for who they are, for who their essence is. So the most important thing ultimately is to be able to embrace a person who is trying to step into their power, step into their identity, step into their growth and development. And yes, there is some sadness and some loss and grief for siblings thinking like, wait, my brother or my sister, like this, we've had all these years together and they were this person and now they're this person. Yeah. And it's a process. It's a process. But just like the last question, we don't want to alienate, and we want to be honest, which is, okay, so this is going to take us some time, and we want to understand like what this means for you to the degree you feel like sharing with us. And we want you to know that we accept you, we love you for who you are. And it might also just take us a little time to get used to this. And so one thing to be asking, because what can be very sensitive is where people make mistakes with the old name. So, by habit, the old name, or in many ways, the old pronoun.
Yeah. Yep.
And in the healthy relationships where you're talking about it, the person could say, okay, I understand. Because often it's like, as long as I know you're trying, I'm okay. Because what happens, it's the disrespect and the non-validation when people are not trying to use the new name or the new pronoun, which is taken as very offensive.
Right.
And so, again, open dialogue and honesty and transparency, which is like, hey, I'm sure you've been thinking about this for a long time. This is all brand new to us. And we want to understand. And we want, please be patient with us while we get used to this. And again, ultimately, we support you and love you for who you are.
Yeah. I mean, again, right, you are showing that support through your honesty. I think certainly someone in their 20s would be able to appreciate the challenges or the challenge that's represented by being vulnerable about something like that. And so I think it's good to show that vulnerability because they're in a vulnerable place as well. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there was anxiety in sharing that they wanted to change their name, and I'm just assuming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
just assuming. So, and then it can be sensed that there is some difficulty in accepting this change. But as you were talking, I was thinking, words are very powerful things.
Mm-hmm.
Names among some of the most powerful of words, and names just so linked to identity.
Mm-hmm.
If we got on the podcast one day and you said, Phil, call me Frank from now on, that would throw me off a little bit because I look across from hundreds of thousands of miles and I see Dan over there, but now you're telling me you're Frank. So if that's powerful for us and we are identifying those people in our lives by their names,
Mm-hmm.
think for a moment about if it's that powerful for us, how strong is it for that individual who wants to change their name?
Yeah.
Or just think
Yeah.
about yourself and your own name and what it would mean for you, to what it would compel you strongly enough to change your name.
Mm-hmm.
And that might also help you relate a
Right.
little bit better.
Right. Right. And I'm thinking of well, speaking of wisdom, I have to bring in Ted Lasso.
Yes.
I say this with some humor, but also for seriousness of what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is I can't remember the name of he only played with them he was this like god who loved avocados and he had like Adonis hair and he was this stud and he was very different. He played with them for maybe a half a season. And I remember the goalie, who I can't remember his former name, but this godlike soccer player said to him, "Why do you go by that name?" And he said, "Because that's the name my parents gave me." And he like grabbed him. He said, "You can go by any name you wish." And the goalie said, "I will go by Van Damme." And the rest of the series, he was Van Damme. But the thing about that, and he was empowered by choosing his name, and it made me think, and it makes me think, we all are like stuck with the names that we are given.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't choose them.
That's right.
And if you think about how many of us have nicknames that we go by within family, with our friends groups, which might have some relationship to our name, but are very different names that when we are with those people, I mean, I was just thinking, I was just with some friends last night and I have a different nickname that like, that's me with them. And it's not Dan, right?
Yeah.
It has a connection to it.
Right.
But so I'm like, but that's an identity. And so I think we just, I totally get this. And I have some personal experience with this. Mm-hmm. So I can also just say so I want to say, yes, this is all very real and all of the loss and the grief and the difficulty is all real. And if we back up and also pull away and try to just look at what are these names and what do they represent? And is it about our kids being as comfortable as they can be in their bodies and in the world?
Yes. Yes. Wow. I love these questions that really make us think, and they make us really explore these issues, which on the surface might seem one way, but then as you start to dig into it, I know I've been having realizations as we work through these questions, and I love that. And that's what I love about our community. They ask such insightful questions.
Yeah.
Next question number 3.
Hmm.
We are a same-sex gay homosexual couple with boy-girl 8-year-old twins. They keep asking who is their mommy. And though we have explained since they were young the factual details of the pregnancy and their birth, they still want to know how they can have a mommy like their friends at school and not just 2 dads. We chose not to have an ongoing relationship with our wonderful surrogate, and our extended family has many aunties, uncles, grandparents, cousins, and love from all genders.
So, yeah, great question.
Really.
I know we keep saying that, but it's true.
It's true. Every time it's true.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with 2 words. I've been thinking about this. 2 words. One is honesty, and the other is validation. Honesty and validation. So as parents, we often are trying to sugarcoat things, which we do. So there's difference between sugarcoating and being honest within the realm of being age appropriate for our kids' development and maturity. Yes. So there's that. And then there is also us wanting to make them take away their pain and make them feel better. So I'm going to start with the validation piece, which is it's important to let them know that I understand that they miss having a mom, right? Like I can understand that you miss having a mom. And the honesty part is many, if not most families have a mom and a dad. Some have 2 moms. Some have 2 dads. Some have no moms. Some have no dads. Right? Because, I mean, still the majority when the kids go to school, in many places, they see both parents. And I know there's lots of people that don't have a mom and don't have a dad for other reasons than this, right? Like they're not around or they have passed away. And so the guidance is not to say some families, like a lot of times we're like, some families have moms and dads, some families have 2 moms, some families have 2 dads. The reason the guidance is not to say some families have moms and dads is because depending on where you live, it might be the majority of the families. And we want to be, this is back to honesty. We want to be honest with our kids so they continue to trust us. Because sometimes when we are not, we're thinking we're not being fully honest and we're trying to protect them, but they see something that we're not validating, they start to question us. And it's the trust in us because they look to us to help them interpret the world. And in a chaotic world with lots of misinformation and lots of stuff coming at them, we're the ones that are supposed to help them with the truth and helping filter them out. So honesty, validation, acknowledging that some kids are raised by their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents. Like, so I think it's like validating and then broadening the conversation so they see all the different multiple types of family constellations, which is different than, well, you have aunts, well, you have grandmothers, well, you have, because that's not what they're saying. Like you can make the bridge, but that's not what they're saying. They're saying like, how come I don't have, how come I can't have a mom? And then ultimately is the continued message once they have been validated is that it's like love is what makes a family, regardless of who are the people in it. And there are many families that their families are not their biological families, they're their chosen families. And it's all about the love and the caring and the connection. But I'm looping back to they need to also be validated for what they're saying.
Right. And as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about this couple, and this is a time for you and your partner to be there for each other as well, because I'm sure, on a level, it might cause you a sense of being invalidated
Right.
because
Right.
you're their fathers, and that's you're
And
their
you're
fathers,
enough. And you're enough.
you're enough,
And you're enough. Right.
and you're enough, and it's hard. I'm not going to say hard. You shouldn't be putting it onto an 8-year-old to validate you as an adult. And I'm just saying that in general.
Right.
And I'm not saying that this couple who wrote in would even consider doing that. But that doesn't mean that it's not okay to hope to get that validation from your 8-year-old that you are enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that might not happen while they're exploring this concept. And that doesn't mean that you are not enough, because you are. But that's where you come together as a couple and you talk through the feelings. And you may already be doing this, but you support each other. You talk through these feelings, and you're honest with each other about it. And you remind each other that you are enough.
Yeah.
It's challenging on many levels. I have no doubt, as was discussed in a previous episode, I think it was with Kurt Braunauer, this is temporary. And it will lead to growth for you, your partner, your whole family.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes me also just think of many other differences that people have to contend with, because there's always the dominant culture.
Yeah.
And there's the dominant culture of race and ethnicity and of religion and of learning style, and there's a lot of differences that people have to contend with in being different, and they're all real. They're all like real, and this is one that your children are understandably asking about.
Yeah, because they will, and as they have, they get to an age where they start to notice the differences.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also an opportunity to foster a sense that they can also celebrate what makes them different from their peers and from their friends. Because at the end of the day, it's not what we have that's the same about everyone around us.
Totally.
It's what's different about us that makes us the people we are, makes us special, and helps us form relationships with this different person and this different person. So there's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah.
Question number 4. Dr. Dan, there is financial stress and job insecurity in our small family of 4, mom, dad, son, daughter. Our high school daughter has noticed my mom's stress and anxiety, as well as my husband's more serious demeanor. She's asking us what's wrong a lot, and we are not sure how to answer. For now, we just say adult stuff. We don't want her to know what is going on because she will be applying to college soon, and it's just too much for a kid to hear this stuff. Do we tell her more or keep it as grown-up problems?
Unfortunately, not uncommon situation.
No.
And the short answer is you tell her more. Here's what happens. First of all, understand why you're trying to shield her from the worry, for multiple reasons, and especially as she's going on to a phase of life which is costly. So kids and adults, people, without knowing facts, generally make up worse realities than the actual situation.
Say it again. Say that again.
Yes.
Say that again.
Most people of all ages, and particularly youngsters, without knowing what is going on in a situation they're worried about, have to come up with their own ideas about it. And clinical experience and research shows that they generally come up with things that are worse than the actual situation. So in this situation, and this is not an uncommon one, and this is life, right? Life has gotten really expensive. and jobs. There's often job insecurity, and like this is real. And so when a kid sees an anxious parent or grandparent, they see a depressed or flat emotion or removed father, grandfather, something that's not usual, they're really going to worry about what's going on.
Yeah.
They might be relieved that, and are they having problems? Are they going to break up? Are they going to get divorced? Is someone really sick?
Yeah.
Does someone have a terminal issue? Am I going to lose this person? Whereas maybe the idea of, hey, we just want to let you know, I know things have seemed a little different lately, or I've seemed a little off, or I might be worrying more. We've just been dealing with some financial stress, and that's what it is. And we wanted to not have you worry about it, but we realize that by not telling you something, you might be worrying more.
Yeah.
And this is something that we're dealing with, and ultimately we're going to figure out, but it just causes some stress. And we also, knowing that you're going to college, we didn't want you to have to think about this because we're going to figure all of that out. Now, something like that, it doesn't have to go deeper. Your child might have questions. Well, like, how much money do we have? And like, what's the job situation? And what happens if, someone gets fired? And it's like, hey, first of all, there's aspects of that which is the adult stuff. That's our job to worry about.
Yes.
You do not have to worry about that. You can ask us questions anytime you have questions, and we'll answer the ones that we feel we can answer and the ones that we think are appropriate to answer for you. Because you don't want her sitting on all this and not being able to ask you questions.
Right.
I remember, I have a memory of, I think I was in high school, and it turned out my parents had an investment in some property situation, which I didn't know about until after. And this is really something. And if my recollection is correct, it was going to be mine and my brother's college money. Something happened with the investment that was like they got swindled out of them. Like someone stole the money from the investment in this like group that invested.
Yeah. Oh.
And apparently there went the planned college money. And I think I found out about this maybe in college.
Yeah.
And I remember being upset that they didn't tell me. It's interesting because I just feel, I was like, how could you not tell me that? Like that, I think I was upset that had happened to them. And they said something like, that was not yours to have to worry about. That we would not put that on you. And so mom and dad, because I know you're listening, that was well done, because that wouldn't have helped me if now it wouldn't have been, looking back, if you said, well, okay, here's this out of state college and here's this in-state college, and really what we have the funds for is an in-state college, and we can't afford an out-of-state college, which I believe they did say that to my younger brother.
Yeah.
Like that was fine. Like that's real. Like that's real without having to know all of what goes behind that. So it's this balancing act.
Yes, exactly. You don't have to drop the whole piano from the 19-story building on their head.
Yeah. All right. I just thought of a fish called Wanda. Okay, another movie reference.
That is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But again, they're going to pick up something's wrong. As you said, they have picked that up. And so, age appropriate, tell them, the high level, here's some of what's going on. Let them ask questions. If there's questions they ask, and you can answer them without, again, or with it being age appropriate and appropriate for where they are with their own stress levels, with everything going on, then answer some of those questions. But it's fine at that point to say, hey, that's where we start to get into the adult stuff. I've experienced it as a parent many times over. And at the end, it's always been better for their anxiety levels to know that, yeah, something is going on, but we are figuring it out. Yeah. It's not easy, this parenting journey. It's not easy because life doesn't stop when we become parents. Life keeps going.
Yeah.
It gets complicated, and life keeps going, and we keep parenting and just take a breath, and you got this.
I'll take it a step back even from parenting journey. Life, the human journey is not easy.
Yes.
Period. And then we have all the layers of all these different roles and identities and obligations. But God, just the whole human thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Whole human thing.
Yeah.
And there you have it. All right. Final question. Question number 5. Can children be addicted to hugs? Ours crave and even demand hugs and embraces all the time. Various ages from 9 to 19.
Okay, I love this question.
I do too.
There is addicted is an interesting word to use for this. I understand the question, meaning like they need it all the time. Okay, there's several kids, it sounds like. So it could be a different process for each kid.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give some reasons that people like to do hugs, or not like to do hugs, even like need hugs. So there's a family culture of hugs, right? Some families are huge hugging cultures, right? And so like some families don't hug much at all. Hey, bye. But other families, like every time they see you, it's a big hug. Love you. So you have to think of your family culture. Is this consistent with your family culture? Is that a piece of it? Another piece is some people are sensory seeking, meaning that they interact with the world through touch. So the way they connect and communicate is through touch, and many people like love hugs. So that could be a sensory need or a sensory seeking need.
Yeah.
And then there is the idea of a little like anxiety, separation anxiety. Like I need to give you a hug. Like this shows that like you love me. I love you. Like a little bit of, sometimes can be some insecurity in that. And other times it could be almost OCD-ish, like that, in the sense that I can't leave the room or leave the house without a hug. Like it just doesn't feel right. Like, so I'm saying that in a soft way, not like a clinical way. I mean, it could be a clinical way, but I'm saying a lot of people have also like just their own rituals and habits. Whereas, kids like every time, good night, I love you. Good night, I love you. No, wait, you say it again. No, I said, good night, I love you. They have to say it a certain way to feel okay. So I feel like there just could be lots of different reasons. And then the question is it a problem?
Yeah.
And it could be maybe get annoying to some people, or does it happen outside of the family? And a lot of friends we now have a much more huggy culture, which I think is much better than the opposite. And but if it's causing problems with friends, or like, could you just give me some space? Then that could be a conversation with your kids. But without knowing more, it's not, I don't know, it's not a thing to over worry about, but I understand it sounds like there's a lot going on, a lot of hugs.
A lot of hugs. Yeah. All I can really add to that is just take inventory, ask yourself, why am I concerned? And then, and then go from there. Yeah. But I personally, I'm a hugger. My growing up, huggers, family of huggers, and I love hugs. And it's as simple as that. I'm with you. Same. I still love hugs.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. And we've never been in the same room together after all these years.
Because we're
across the country from each other. But when we are, I know we're gonna like give each other a really big hug.
Oh, you better believe it. You better believe it. I look forward to that.
Yes.
I look forward to that. And I do have one last question before we wrap the show, considering that it is Halloween.
Ooh.
Dr. Dan,
yes.
What is your favorite scary movie?
Oh, wow.
And it could be one of your favorite scary movies. You don't have to just pick one, but one that comes to mind.
Okay, so first of all, we had a little work event last night, and one of our colleagues was leaving for Thursday scary movie night. And so that brought up this conversation where I was talking about how horror movies freak me out to the point that I no longer have to watch them, like back in the peer pressure days when you were like watching them with your friends.
Of course.
So I've seen plenty. They freak me out. But when I think about what I would consider like scary movie that I really liked, so it might not be horror, because I'm saying ones that I liked.
Okay, that's a distinction.
So I think of two, which freaks my wife out, both of these. One is The Shining.
Yes.
And the other is Silence of the Lambs.
Okay, those are perfectly.
Do those count as scary? Do those count as scary movies?
Absolutely count,
because they're not horror.
Yes.
So scary is different than horror. I mean, but they overlap.
Yes, they overlap. Especially The Shining. Especially The Shining 100% qualifies in my book, and those are perfect answers. And
what about you?
Seasonally appropriate. So if I had to name one scary movie, and based on what you just shared with me, please don't ever watch this film. Please. It's a film called Hereditary by the studios A24. They do some very kind of psychological horror movies that bring in the supernatural as well, but in just a sort of this creeping dread way where you're just kind of, the tension is mounting. They're not particularly bloody or gory films. They don't really rely on that. I'm already
getting anxious though, this thinking about it, because that name, what that implies is such a smart name.
Yes.
For explaining something that I don't even want you to tell us. Right?
I'm not going to share about it. But if our listeners fancy a good horror movie, they haven't seen one, and they're okay with needing to process it for several days, then I strongly recommend it. And hey, don't feel bad. Our producer Laura told me that she used to watch scary movies when she was younger, but she just can't do it anymore.
No.
So
no,
I'll hold down the fort in that case.
You got us. You got us.
And that's it. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween, gang.
Happy Halloween, everyone. One last reminder about our promo codes and links from all of our incredible advertisers. They're on exactlyrightmedia.com/promos, and then scroll down where you see Parent Footprint, and you'll find all of our latest deals. Thanks for promoting and supporting our show. Thanks for being a part of our community. I will leave you with these two thoughts you are used to hearing me say. Be the person you want your child to become, and ask yourself the guiding question, what footprint do you want to leave? This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Mountain Spring High, composed and performed by Gabriel Lewis. Artwork is by Garrett Ross. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parent Footprint Podcast, and on Twitter at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, go to exactlyrightmedia.com.